There are times where the industry tries to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes someone has already marked the simplest and most effective path to follow. In this case, I believe that Longines could take a look at its neighbor, Oris, to gather some ideas from the strategies they have implemented in recent years. Oris and Longines are very similar brands in many aspects. The most important and recent aspect is that both brands are aiming to be the ones providing the greatest value for quite a fair price within the world of high-end watchmaking. If you visit a jeweler, you will find these brands in the high-end watch category. This is an excellent way to position themselves, but that's not what we're going to discuss today. As I have mentioned before, Longines has been carrying a long history of negative perception regarding ETA movements. And where can we see this same situation? Clearly in the entry-level models from Oris, specifically talking about the Aquis or the Diver 65 models, which use Celita-based movement. Essentially, ETA and Celita movements are fundamentally the same. Both manufacturers have been the largest suppliers of movements, from micro brands looking for the status of a Swiss movement. Although these movements are extremely reliable, robust, and well built, the problem I see is that they have become generic movement because you could find them in basically any affordable watch. And although there are different versions of the movements with various decorations and finishings, stating that it has a Celita or ETA movement represented something well made but generic, essentially lacking exclusivity. Oris continues to and will keep using these red rotor calibers, and it is worth recognizing that they have always been clear that their movements are Celita based. The complication arises later when Swatch Group acquired the ETA factory, something we have seen before in the industry. For example, Rolex bought the factory that made their movements and some components, and they did this just so that its movements could be considered in-house. Or Breitling, which partnered with Chanel, Tudor, and Norqain to acquire the Kenisi factory, allowing all of them to have their own manufactured caliber. This is quite normal and generally well accepted in the watch industry. The difference is that none of these brands had a history of selling calibers to everyone, but ETA did. This is where Oris' strategy stands out. They still have entry-level models with basic movements. However, they understood that entering the world of high-end watchmaking is entering a world of status and emotional purchases, not logical ones. And if there's something that luxury doesn't align with, it's being generic. This is exactly where Longines could learn from Oris. To justify entering the high-end watchmaking world, you can't settle for modifying a generic caliber and placing it in your watches. Sooner or later, that will backfire on you. Take Hublot for an example. They have entry-level models with Celita calibers and charge over $7,000 for them. The fact that they are one of the most hated brands in the industry isn't really a coincidence, right? Oris, on the other hand, understood this perfectly and decided to develop their Caliber 400, which is 100% designed by Oris. And here comes the most important part. It is a completely different caliber from the Celita based. If I place the red rotor caliber and the Caliber 400 side by side, you can clearly identify which one is in-house and which one is generic. From design aspects to movement architecture, everything is different. And this is a perfect way to justify your entry into the high-end watchmaking world. Because, I mean, anyone can buy a movement, make a dial, and put it into a case and voila, you have a watch. But not everyone develops their own movement. That is the differentiation and what makes it feel like a luxury watch, an exclusive product. And this is where you can justify doubling the price. Now, returning to Longines, they are searching for this identity of luxury watchmaking and exclusivity, but ETA calibers are still perceived as generic movement, regardless of whether it's an annual calendar or a triple calendar chronograph with a lunar phase. Even if the calibers are new and highly decorated, they still look very much like a basic ETA caliber. Longines needs to change this perception because it is devaluing their movements. They urgently need a differentiator, something that the general public can clearly differentiate between basic Longines caliber and an ETA caliber. Change the architecture, change the type of rotor, pretty much change anything you like. Now, I know some of you might say, who are you to give advice to Longines? And I mean, they might be right, but that's what this channel is for. I understand that all of this is going to cost millions of dollars, but I think it is a small price to pay to change the long-standing brand perception, which is truly an investment. Because developing an in-house caliber with the technology they already literally have requires just some architectural and aesthetic changes. You can easily double the price of the watches. They will feel of a higher quality and will have a much higher perceived value. And that's it. I believe Longines is a high quality brand. The only thing missing is changing the perception the market has of it. It is not easy, but it can be done. Many brands have achieved this, and for this example, I could have chosen Tudor or IWC because they have all done something similar and their brand status has soared. So why not replicate what is proven to work? But tell me, what do you think?